Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Excel College Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Chambers.
And I'm Isaiah Schmidt.
And I'm Cassadie Solis.
Oh, hey, we're supposed to introduce you.
No.
Oh, okay. Cassie's going to introduce herself.
We are guests. Cassadie's hosting today. Actually, she's going to be interviewing us. No.
All right, Cass, let's get after it.
Wait, that would actually be fun.
That would be fun.
Andrew and I love to talk.
We do love to talk.
That's why we started this podcast.
That's just to hear ourselves talk.
Yeah.
So, if you're new, then you don't know that we've had Cassadie on before. If you're not new, then you know that we've had Cassadie on before. Can we give a brief introduction of who you are, before we...
Sure.
Just so people that are new?
Yeah.
Okay, why do you call yourself Cassadie now instead of Cassie?
Oh,
there
that's
we go.
not brief. So my full name is Cassadie, and all my life I've been called Cassie. And whenever anyone asks, when they find out, most people actually in the past did not know my full name ever. It was always just Cassie.
I thought it was just Cassie.
Yeah. And so when they find out, they're like, "Oh, which do you prefer?" And I was like, "Oh, whatever." Never give an answer. I'm like, "Oh, it's up to you."
Yeah,
you know?
but you really care inside.
I did care.
Okay.
I love my full name. And finally, recently, which is ironic because I'm not the first person to do this on this campus or in my house. It's really my house mainly. But I heard other people had made this transformation of like, they started asking people to call them by their full name. And they're like, "No, I want to be called this." And I was like, "Oh, you can do that? You can actually have a preference about your name," which sounds duh right now, but took a lot. And so finally I started just like subtly, like when people would ask, they'd be like, "Do you like Cassadie?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I love my full name." They're like, "Well, do you want to be called that?" And I'm like, yes. Actually, I would prefer that. And
Nice.
I was like, have your preference, and had this whole moment where I actually had to go up to a guest speaker and apologize for introducing myself as Cassie and reintroduced myself.
Nice.
And she like spoke identity over that.
I had to be Karen.
Cool.
It was Karen.
Yeah.
Karen Dilbeck.
I know exactly who that was.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So
Okay.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Karen.
Yeah.
So
So Cassadie.
Yes.
Yes. So we're glad to have you on today, and we're going to be talking about the physics module. Dun, dun,
Physics, which we're still not done with.
Yes.
I realized.
We're on week 3 of physics, right?
Yeah.
3.
Isaiah and I missed a lot of it.
I know.
Oh
Shame.
yeah.
We're in Cincinnati.
We're going to
Yes.
missing the worship night this Friday,
Yeah.
which we're both horribly bummed about.
Same.
And
And
Andrew
we're missing the miracle discussion tomorrow.
dude, I'm
The
telling
physics.
Where are y'all gonna be?
we got to tear down the stronghold of these conferences, man.
Yeah. We love these
They're
conferences.
getting in the way.
We met this guy named Tucker Carlson in Cincinnati last week.
Yeah.
We got
That's
him to sign our
amazing.
milk jug.
Yeah, he signed our milk jug.
We choked. We didn't have any brochures, nothing on us because we packed everything up.
Oh.
We had Isaiah's water jug. And we're like,
Oh.
"Will you sign this for us?" And he was like, "Of course I'll sign your water jug." Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about physics.
Physics.
Yes. So let's hop in.
Yeah. Module number 5. So if you go critical thinking,
critical
theology,
thinking.
philosophy, mathematics.
Was critical thinking a whole module?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to? Should we do a recap of like modules leading up to here, like how they fit into physics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Show the narrative.
Yeah.
I'm not the one.
Do you want to
Curriculum
share
expert.
this?
Yeah. Curriculum
Cass,
expert.
first
Take it
time
away.
through. Let's get
Yeah. Very brief. Very 10,000 foot view. Critical thinking is just how do we unpack an argument? Underneath everything that someone's saying is a lot. So let's unpack it. Let's learn to think for ourselves. Let's learn to unpack ideas, uncover assumptions, examine implications. What would happen if I actually applied what they're saying to my real life? So that's the critical thinking module. We practice that skill. And now we're ready to actually step into the curriculum, the modules, one after the next. Theology, obviously, the most transcendent. Is there a God? If so, yes, what's he like? What is his characteristics? And if he's good, then why is there so much evil and suffering? And then
What's his problem?
What's his problem?
Yeah.
And if there is, which we do see a lot of suffering in the world, what's his solution? One word: Christ. So we get past theology and we step into philosophy, still in the transcendent, still in the kind of ethereal, big abstract questions. But the curriculum is doing this. It's going almost a funnel, like zooming in, zooming in, zooming in. So we ask the 4 big questions of philosophy. I don't know. Should I monologue all of them?
No, you're doing it.
We had you on
wanted
for
to jump in.
philosophy,
Yeah.
right? We had you on for
was
philosophy.
philosophy.
Okay, break down
Yeah.
philosophy for us.
Oh gosh.
You weren't ready for that, were you?
No, I wasn't. I'm trying to remember the 4 questions.
Okay.
What is knowledge?
Mhm.
What is real? What is good?
Yeah.
What's ahead?
Boom.
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't
You knew.
remember.
Come on.
Boom.
Yeah. Philosophy is great.
Yeah.
And it was ultimately asking those really hard questions of life with the basis of theology, but also practicing taking theology out of it to be able to answer the questions.
Oh, interesting.
That was a big thing.
What do you mean? Like, give me an example of that.
So, like, what is reality?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is actually real? A lot of people in the Christian world, their automatic answer is God, but they don't actually know what that means. They don't know like how we got to that answer and why it's actually true.
I see.
And so philosophy is kind of showing you like the hard work that a lot of the classic philosophers and those that participated in the Great Conversation like laid down for us and wrestled with to get us to the point to be able to answer God.
Yeah.
And so,
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I like the point you bring up. It's like, could the answer God be shallow? Could that be a shallow response and a shallow answer?
I think it could be if you can't if you don't know why.
Right.
Like, well, why is it God?
Huh.
You know, and philosophy kind of shows us. Like,
Jesus.
This is the culmination of so many things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So then mathematics.
Yeah, mathematics.
Oh.
Which is kind of that bridge between that transcendent and immanent. Mathematics is something that when we have a lens to see, we see it everywhere.
Yeah.
And we realize we can't escape it.
I love
everything about our lives, everything we've ever touched, seen, heard, smelled, interacted with, mathematics is intimately connected.
Wow.
But it's also this thing where there's certain mathematical principles where it's like you can only represent it with number. It's not something you actually see represented in the real world.
Yeah.
Can you get a bucket of 3?
Yeah.
So
it's abstract.
you talk about that, like the infinite and the finite coming together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like transcendent and
Imminent.
imminent coming
Yeah.
together.
The
I was
infinite.
like transcendent and send it.
Send it. The infinite and the finite, yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
that is so cool. Like
Mhm.
the theoretical and the practical.
Yeah. How could finite beings interact with an infinite being?
Yeah.
Take a look at mathematics. You see it
Dang.
all over the place.
Dang.
You see we're interacting with finite figures all the time
Yeah.
as finite beings.
Wow.
But it's in a sea of infinite.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then we cross the bridge
Mm-hmm.
over into
The physical world.
Physical science.
The material study of it. All the good
our
stuff.
curriculum's pretty dang good.
Pretty amazing.
That's actually pretty cool.
You're like,
Yeah.
oh wow, we did that.
Like
That's good.
that.
That's good.
Yep.
So physics.
Mm-hmm.
I know we have some like highlights and stuff, but like kind of overall broad view of physics so far.
I mean, physics is the study of the natural and material world. And we've gone through several focuses so far. The first one being our orientation in the world, so multi-cosmic focus. And just like getting our bearings through the scientific method and really like almost interrogating the scientific method and pulling it apart and understanding how we got to that point. And then we went into a macrocosmic focus, which was like the bigness of the universe and figuring out like our place in that. And like we asked the question, is Earth the center of the universe?
Oh yeah.
Which
sounds duh.
sounds duh, but then you read the arguments and there are some students that are like, that's convincing. I'm confused. Like that's really convincing. And then it's also super easy to tear it apart because you're like, well, duh, we're not the center of the universe.
Yeah.
We know that. But
Yeah. Wait, what was convincing?
well, the people who I don't remember who it was. Don't remember the author's name, or the scientist. But was it?
I'm trying to remember who it was.
No, not Copernicus. Got us out of that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Aristotle.
Ptolemy.
Ptolemy.
Yeah.
Ptolemy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But with the information that he was working with, he provided a very convincing argument, which is why it was the foundation for our place in the physical world in the universe for so long, and why it took so much to
Like 2,000 years, right? Or
yeah.
like that?
It was also biblically based. When they pull in scripture, and you're like, oh, the earth was firmly established; it shall never be moved.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So,
whoa.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
And then this week we are in a motocosmic focus, which is we're exploring motion within the universe.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Can we go back to the scientific method thing for a second?
Yeah.
Because I have like a little rant on that I just need to like ask you guys about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, have you heard people say things like, I believe in science?
Yes.
Yeah.
And like, well, science says.
Yeah.
It like just dawned on me a couple years ago. I was like, when we say science says, what we mean are people that are hopefully trained are following the scientific method and gathering like stats and observations and putting them into a hypothesis that people need to like then verify.
Yeah.
Like that's what we mean when we say science says.
Scientists say.
We should say scientist. It's like people say the internet said this, and it's like no, the internet did not say anything.
Yeah.
You got on Twitter and you said that. But I say like it's become this, like science has become kind of our new god, and like it's become this thing where people say like science says, and then that's the end all be all.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas, but it's also confusing because like scientific studies are like correcting each other and changing like constantly. And I'm not undermining the scientific method, but what I'm saying is like people's observations and like what they're is like constantly changing and growing, and it drives me up the wall when I see bumper stickers that say like I believe in science. I'm like, what does that mean?
What is science to you?
Yeah,
you know, are
science?
you talking about the study of natural laws and the physical world? Are you talking about scientists that you read articles on?
Totally.
Or are you talking about actual scientific law, like the laws of nature?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Like,
Because science isn't.
And there's just like battle that's happening because we talked about that the first week or two, right?
Yeah.
Like, this battle happening between science and faith.
Yeah.
And scientists have become the new priest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To some extent.
And the new philosophers.
Yeah.
Which.
Yeah. Davis goes on this rant, but like stay in your lane.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
Let's talk about that.
Okay. Cool. So, science and faith have, in recent centuries, been pitted against each other. Like they are rivals and always have been to us, the modern world.
Right.
And a lot of people, just society in general, doesn't see how that could ever be reconciled without compromising one another.
Yeah.
When in reality, they each have authority, like rightful authority to speak on their subjects. You know, science has actual real authority, which a lot of people in modern church don't like.
A lot of Christians will try to take that away because
Yeah.
they're intimidated. I think.
Because they're intimidated
Yeah.
and they don't actually understand.
Yeah.
Because they don't dive into it.
Yeah.
But science has real authority, and science is a way to get answers to questions that we ask about the physical world. That's why the scientific method exists. But it started making philosophical and like theological claims that it couldn't.
Wait, you mean when you say it, you mean science, or you mean the people practicing science?
People practicing science.
Yeah.
And that's where the authority kind of got toppled. But I mean, that was the whole, like, faith was also making scientific claims that it couldn't because it wasn't
that it
actually
wasn't
studying
supposed to be
science.
making-
Right.
Which is the whole problem with like the Earth-centered view of the universe.
Yeah.
Was it was making scientific claims
that it wasn't supposed to be making.
that there was no real
Mm-hmm.
scientific grounds for.
Yeah.
And so realizing that each one of them, also they don't oppose each other. They just don't.
Yeah.
When you actually look at them as for what they are and listen to what they're telling you and what the actual, like, the book of God's word is saying and the book of his works, which are natural laws, because the natural laws of the universe and the physical world are the word of God, because I believe that he is who created the universe, and all of creation is held and sustained by him. Then they can't oppose. It's a false dichotomy. And science does agree with faith. Like they need each other. They support one another.
Yeah. What I remember one discussion day we had, I think you were in my group, where just on the board, just wrote up, matter is all that there is.
Yeah.
Remember that? Yeah. It's like the conclusion of this old Greek philosopher from like the 1st century AD named Lucretius.
Yeah.
And he has this writing called Atomic Materialism. And basically his final contention is that matter is all that there is. Anything that's outside of material, which physics being the study of matter, reading matter, it felt appropriate to bring that up. Matter is all that there is, and we just had a discussion, or our group did. Is this a scientific claim? Right? That matter is all that there is, right?
Yeah.
And essentially it's like, is this a scientific claim?
Yeah.
And we're just like,
No.
Wow.
It's not.
Yeah.
By the laws of science and the scientific method,
Mm-hmm.
you can't make that claim.
Yeah.
Right.
Science can give you probability when it can't give you certainty.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are only ever humans approximating
Yeah.
scientific claims.
So that's the whole like stay in your lane thing.
Yeah, it's a philosophical claim.
Mhm.
It's a philosophical claim. It's saying metaphysically what's out there is only matter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, that's just not a scientific claim.
Mm-hmm.
Science is about studying matter. It's a measuring tool for measuring matter.
Which,
And,
oh yes, this was the day because I had just asked Davis because I realized we're moving into a culture and a society, at least in modern America, and I think most of the West actually, where we're becoming post-science. Science is quickly becoming a topple to God. And it's because it started making philosophical claims
That it wasn't supposed to be making.
Oh,
interesting.
And we as a society did not like that because it was starting to tell us what to do. And so we're moving into this society now where reason, our own individual autonomy is becoming our God, and we are telling science.
Yeah.
Oh,
like
interesting.
science has to
Here's what
bend
you
to
want
us.
you to say. Wow,
Yeah.
interesting. Whoa.
Yeah.
It's crazy, like, just going back to the whole, like, the war between science and faith thing. Because whenever I'm like, wait, didn't we invent that stuff? Like, didn't people of faith, like, actually start discovering that you can apply the scientific method? And, like...
Francis Bacon.
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like, wait, why are we at war? Like, didn't we make this thing?
Yeah. And it's not, and I go back to all the time because people are always like, who's the opponent of Christians? And some people are like, we should have a Christian and an atheist debate each other. Or like, we should have a Christian and a scientist debate each other. And it's just like, it's not that. It's like, there's a group of people out there that say, matter is not all that there is.
Yeah.
There's the immaterial, that exists.
Yeah.
And then there's people out there that say, matter is all that there is.
Oh,
and they can debate. They can have all the arguments that they want.
Yeah.
But in the end, they're not going to change each other's minds. But it's not the scientist, it's the materialist. It's not the atheist, it's the materialist. It's the one that says matter's all that there is.
Oh, interesting.
Versus those, like you're saying, who, I mean, there's a whole category of people that just believe in beyond matter.
Right.
Like life that exists beyond the matter, the material, like internal language, but the new Copernicans, right?
Yeah.
The people that are open transcendence, they believe in a transcendent realm that exists, that's real, if not more real than the material world. But it's immaterial.
Okay.
It's an immaterial world. Yeah.
Which Galileo was, I mean, he did really well in laying out, like, I'm not opposing the Bible.
Right.
I'm not saying the Bible is to be thrown out. It has its authority, but so does science.
Yeah.
Stop throwing out science.
He got slammed, right?
Yeah.
Nature.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering if some of the modern, like, quote unquote war or animosity between science and faith is like, because as Christians we're like, science's fault because they're trying to come down on us, you know, and really isn't like just as much kind of our fault for like even the thing with Galileo and the church like no, you know.
I mean, they had him. I think they excommunicated him, and then they made him retract his claims.
Yeah,
like they made him put a statement out there.
Jeez,
yeah.
Well, there's even certain people in the church now that I won't name, but that are like, if you don't believe this way, you can't be a Christian. You know, as far as like about certain scientific theories and views, and I'm like, let's stop there.
I'll go there.
But yeah, I think.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting. Like, who started that war?
Yeah.
Well, is it a war? Is it necessarily who started that war, or is it just like, you know, someone who's just so, man, I don't even know what to say, but it's like the church was so stubborn. They were like, we're gonna hold on to this claim because if you change, and we talked about myths, right? This is why myths come up because it's like this fundamental building block of how we understand ourselves. And also, right, the church is all in Latin. It's reserved, the Bible's all in Latin. Only the church can read it. Only the church can interpret it. Like, so people get it from the church, but they realize there's like this is the way that it is. This is the way that it is. It's this powerful authority structure on the earth, powerful. But it's unmoving and it's unwilling to change its mind. It won't change its mind. It's saying we're not going to do that. And any voice that starts to speak out against, we're going to snuff it out. Snuff it out in a real sense. Literally people killing, the church killing people. That are saying the earth is not at the center of the universe. And why? It's because it's like it's challenging their myth. It's challenging like a fundamental building block of their myth.
So was it fear really that caused all
Probably.
because they didn't know. Like, you take away a piece of their identity, ultimately.
Yeah,
and you don't know how they're going to react.
Yeah. I mean, Stephen made a joke about that in class about, like, he put a GIF up in the group chat about, like, this is what happens when somebody challenges my myth. But it's like, why do people hold on to that so hard? Yeah. It's like, well, it's a big part.
Which is so interesting what we assume about humanity and how humanity is going to react. And even about ourselves, because, right, like, my thought was, well, once the Copernican revolution happened, humanity was probably in a very fragile state and very vulnerable and probably like thrown into chaos.
Yeah.
Because their whole world literally just got flipped upside down.
Wow.
And everything that they believed, they probably started questioning.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
that is so interesting.
And so I was like actually being very skeptical and cynical about it, and I was like, humanity was probably just like off the deep end at that point. People were probably off the deep end.
Yeah.
And had no grounds. But then we looked at the timeline. And it was actually after the Copernican revolution that like progress started being made in humanity, and it started happening fast.
Wow.
Like the invention, I think, of the printing press, the discovery of gravity was right around then.
Wow.
Or like
Protestant Reformation.
The Protestant Reformation.
Wow.
Like all of a sudden, humans found out there is more to discover.
Wow.
And they sought it out.
Wow.
Instead of being fearful, they went out. They wanted to explore.
Wow.
And so it was like, oh, we assume that humanity is actually like weaker than I think it really is. And I think the church was making that assumption too.
Wow.
Like, we are too fragile. Like, we cannot.
Like to handle the truth.
Yeah. And I think I need to give humanity a lot more credit.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I like that.
It's interesting we talked about like people's myth and like the identity that comes from that, because we actually had a day in class where we talked about like origin stories
Oh yeah.
and how they actually like bestow identity, and without an origin story, people don't know like who they are, where they're going, like where they come from. And you can look at cultures all over the world and look at these different like stories of like why they are how they are. And I just thought it was so fascinating. We asked like questions like, what happens when you don't have an origin story?
Yeah.
Which might be honestly why there's so much fear around, you know, the creation debates and all this kind of stuff. Because people think if you change the scientific part of it, or like how you include science, then you're taking away the whole meaning of that story. Yeah. Right. Which is what gives me meaning now. Which I think probably leads to a lot of that like resistance and fear.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I would agree.
So that's it's more actually understandable when you think about it like that. I might just change my mind about something.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Sorry, I was just smiling. I'm just thinking of conversations.
Do you have a note-taking device thing?
Note-taking?
Cassie's stuff on. Cassie's stuff on.
What's that?
The phone. My phone. Do you have my phone? I can't find
the
it.
note-taking device?
I was trying to say, do you have my phone? But
this will probably get cut then?
Probably, I guess.
No.
They have the questions we were going to ask.
Yeah, I have it. It's fine.
Oh, sure.
Oh, what the?
You must have put it there.
I must have.
With your long arms.
My long arms, yeah. Dude, I was like trying to like low-key just glance and glance and glance and glance. I'm like, dude. Should I bathroom since we're breaking? No bathroom.
Keep rolling.
Keep rolling?
Keep rolling.
Yeah, just clap whenever you're
slave driver, okay.
We should put those away. Oh yeah, G.K. Chesterton reading. I remembered all these. I was going.
Yeah, he was good.
What?
I'm kidding. So anyway, all right. So anyway, you're telling us about how you're older evolutionary Christianity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How young earthers anyway are just like ignorant.
Total crock.
Total crockpots.
Kim Ham's a dummy.
Kim Ham is a dummy. In the name of Jesus.
In the name of Jesus.
Just keep going.
That was awesome.
All right, well, that'll conclude the podcast for today.
Okay, let's roll.
Yeah.
I think maybe put the phone, just because it will, if we cut to it, it'll literally go from not there to there, right?
It can be there, it's fine.
But it wasn't there before we cut.
Why does that matter?
Doesn't matter.
No. Gosh.
Okay.
It would matter if it was like, you know.
Like a movie?
High production.
Yeah.
Or like
okay.
A series that was getting paid millions of dollars.
All right.
Yeah.
How shall we clap? Okay.
Clap and then pause.
Okay.
Okay.
So, another thing is interesting. Earlier, you talked about like the materialists and like materials all there is.
Yeah.
And then immaterials?
Immaterial. Yeah. Immaterial. Yeah.
So, for me, that actually kind of coincides a little bit with the question that we're asking this week around like miracles, the discussion we're having tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because like if this is a closed system, just cause and effect, and this is all there is, and there's no room for miracles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the question that we're going to be asked in class, which I'm glad that they asked it ahead of time because it gave me time to think.
Yeah.
Like, what do I
Oh, we're getting the preview of your.
Yeah. So, the big question is: are miracles then a violation of the laws of science and the natural laws? And I right away, my answer was no. And the more I think about it, the more my answer is no. They're not a violation of the laws of science. One, because if the natural laws of the universe and the cosmos as a whole are the word of God, like we really believe that he created the universe and everything in it, then he clearly created the systems that are in place in it.
Yeah.
Then they have to align. They have to be the same thing. The laws are the spoken word of God. Creation and nature is obeying the command of the Lord.
Yeah.
Then miracles can't be a violation because they're still obeying his word.
Interesting.
And I think, and we haven't done any readings on this yet, but I think that really miracles are the fulfillment of the fullness of potential of the natural world. Because if God is creator and sustainer,
oh, interesting. He's like speeding
he's
it
the
up.
one, yeah.
Whoa.
Like we are really tapping into a fraction of the potential of everything in the created world.
Interesting.
Our brains, our physical capacity,
Yeah.
like the use of natural resources and all of that. Why wouldn't God
That is
know
very interesting.
how to reach in and turn it up to 100%?
Huh.
And I think that's really all it is. Like, I think water turning into wine, he's literally changing the molecular structure.
Right.
It's not just some magic trick.
Right.
You know?
Wow.
That's so interesting because we talk about the resurrection. Jesus is the first fruits.
Yeah.
AKA like the first harvest from the field, but there's a lot more coming after it. So we think about that in terms of like our resurrection, but then he says like he'll do even greater things than these. And so it's like within the new creation, like we just keep getting more and more like to the fullness and like, capacity of. Oh, that's so interesting.
We're tapping into progress. We're tapping into invention and innovation and even like in both directions, right? In technological development, but also in going back to our roots and relearning how to steward the land and take care of the natural world and the environment and the thing that has sustained us as a race for so long, you know? And I think we're slowly growing towards that 100%.
Oh, that is so interesting.
But God can reach in and hit.
I love that.
You know, like
I love that. Davis has this thing where he talks about like, you know, the verse like in him we live and move and have our being.
Yeah.
He's like, that. What if that's not just a cute saying?
Yeah.
Like, what if it really is true?
Yeah.
And the Porthos reading we did about like the natural laws are actually God's faithfulness.
Yes.
Like
so
just
good.
holding everything together.
Yeah.
That is so cool. So cool.
I loved that reading.
That was so cool.
It was. It just seemed like they're reflections of each other. Not even reflections. They are like this chords in the same or strands in the same chord. You know. And just working together and being intertwined. Can't really separate them.
And the Chesterton reading, like the do it again. Like
oh my gosh!
I
actually cried during class when I read that because it was the statement. The do it again got me really excited because I was like, what if every sunrise is just like an everyday miracle
and insane gift,
and like God's own version of like, here's my 100% in this version. Like I want to make it this way.
Oh, amazing.
But it was when Chesterton wrote, what if he didn't just like mass produce all the daisies all at once? What if he loved it so much he decided to create it again and again and again, and so everything is just an encore. Like heaven is encoring the things on earth because they like it is so good and so beautiful that God's like, I want to do it again.
Amazing.
I want to do it again.
I love it.
He used the example of a child too, a little kid. He's like, which I think is just so relatable. Who doesn't have this experience in their life where a kid's like, throw me up in the air, and you're just like, wow, you maybe throw them, and they're like, do it again, and you're like, okay, and then they're like, again, higher, and you're like, all right,
My back is
whatever,
killing me.
I'm getting kind of tired.
Yeah.
Kind of thinking about lunch now.
Yeah.
You throw them maybe 5 times. You're like, all right, little boy, see ya. I'm gonna go eat. And they're like, please.
Yeah.
You know, that's like adults.
Yeah.
It's an economic principle. It's like the law of diminishing return.
Right.
You know, like, oh, the first time it's awesome.
Yeah.
The next time it's less awesome. The next
Yeah.
time it's just like, what if children have this beautiful thing in their souls where that
Do it
hasn't quite
again.
developed?
That's so cool.
That law of diminishing return. It's the same every time. It's like better every time. It's like, I just want more and more.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what if with God too? It's just like every time the sun comes up, it's no more tiresome.
Right.
It's just as fulfilling.
So
it's just
good.
as beautiful.
So good.
Every daisy he made, all billions and billions and billions, each uniquely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's the law, right? It's the rule, right?
Mm-hmm.
The laws of nature, the laws of the physical universe say that it's always going to be this way. The sun's always going to rise. And it's like, well, what if that's actually him? Yeah. Like, it's like the law and then the exception to the law, right? Which we would call a miracle.
Right.
The law and then the exception to the law. What if it's both?
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
He takes up all the space. There's no way to get away from him.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it a lot. Because then in my mind, it's like, okay, well then, and this would require some defining of miracles and almost like different types of miracles. But to me, that just makes the law itself miraculous.
Yeah.
Because God's hand is in it, like literally in it every single
every
day.
day. It's faithfulness. Yeah. I remember when I went on the world race back in the day, like 10 years ago now. Oh my goodness. And I went to like 3 of the 7 world wonders. So we saw Victoria Falls, Taj Mahal, like flew over Mount Everest. And I remember being so disappointed at each one of those.
With the presidents?
Huh?
Anyway.
Disappointed?
Yeah.
With the Himalayas?
With all of them.
Whoa.
Because I was expecting this like, and really what I learned was like waking up every morning and seeing the sunrise, like at 5 a.m. and being there and just being was incredible. Like seeing hibiscus flowers coming out of a bush at this like person's yard, like little kids running around and playing in puddles was incredible. And so like I was putting all of this expectation on Mount Everest and on the Taj to like blow me away instead of just like enjoying it for what it was. I was like, you have to blow me away, you know?
Yeah.
And then it was so like disappointing, honestly. But then like getting home and like learning to like look at a blade of grass and like this is insane. He's been doing this for hours.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Which my kid does now, you know?
Yeah.
Like he's literally playing in the same rock pile for hours and totally fine.
That's awesome.
And just like seeing a sunset, just, this is amazing. You know?
I was thinking about just that myth discussion, right? Because myth is all about where did I come from? Why am I here? How am I supposed to see the world and the story that I live in? And where am I going?
Yeah.
That's what a myth story provides you. And the whole conversation on myths, I think, is so cool because it's like you actually come to the realization. It's like I get to actually choose what myth that I start to see my life as a part of.
Yeah.
And some might see, oh, I'm here because of random mutation over millions of years, and I originated because of a super condensed mass that exploded billions of, and it's pretty random and like you can choose that myth.
Yeah.
Or I can choose the myth of like exactly what you're describing. A sunset every morning is an actually intentional act that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
We can choose the myth. We get to choose the myth.
I think you mean sunrise.
Sunrise.
What did I say?
Sunset. I was like, this is so good. I don't want to stop that. I was like, I can't.
Well, there goes the soundbite moment. It's gone.
I was like,
it was almost
I can't get sunset morning out of my head.
The sun.
I was trying so hard. And then I can't do it.
Like, what did I say? Yeah, but you get to choose your myth.
Yeah.
Well, and that's
Choose
the whole
well.
thing. Like, it's just different language, but the same thing of what narrative are you living in? And you get to choose your own narrative.
Yeah.
And you get to choose whether every day is monotonous and boring and you don't celebrate the monotony and life is unbearable and there's nothing worth celebrating, about it. But you could also choose the narrative to look at your life as a miracle because every breath is God in heaven encoring, saying, do it again. Do it again.
Yeah.
You're so much fun. I enjoy you so much. I want you to breathe again. I want you to smile again.
Wow.
And how... I mean, that's life-changing. It changes every moment.
It does. Like, it's crazy how much honor and power he's given us. And like, as a man, I think it's so easy. Because like how I think about my origins and like about...
Say that verse again.
As a man, think it's so easy.
Ah.
But like...
Proverb, right?
I think so.
I know we just say it a lot, and it's
Yeah.
internal language,
Yeah, yeah.
just for our viewers,
Oh.
our listeners. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
As a man thinks in his heart,
Yeah.
so is he. Yeah.
And like
So profound.
So like with your story, with the story that you believe that you came out of,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's actually reality or not, it actually becomes your reality,
Yeah,
which is like a huge honor and also a huge responsibility.
it is.
And you can see people are like in the exact same like situations or places and have two different trajectories, mostly because of how they like what story they believe,
Right.
which is totally strange and amazing and like a big responsibility, I think, actually also.
Well, and I think that was even portrayed in class because there's a statement made that God doesn't need man. God didn't need any of this. And we had some very different reactions in the classroom as a whole. And some people took it as like, then we are not necessary. And why do we even exist then? Yeah. And it just like went a totally different direction.
Yeah.
When in reality, like, no, God didn't need us. He created us anyway. He wanted us.
He wanted us.
He continues to want us because at any moment we could stop existing.
Yeah.
Because we are contingent, dependent beings.
Yeah.
And literally at any moment he could just be like, stop. And everything would stop. Because he doesn't need us.
Yeah.
For his existence, he is not dependent on anyone. He is not contingent on anything for his existence. And what an honor that the only being in the universe, in the entire cosmos, that doesn't need anyone continues to want us to exist.
Totally. That's amazing.
I just think of like a guy owns a farm. Like, come on, like, what's the story there? If it's like, oh, I need some farm hands, I'll have some kids. Yeah. I'll make some children for farm hands because I need them. I need people to work the ground.
Right. Yeah.
I need people to work my garden.
Yeah.
I'll have some kids so I can do that.
Yeah.
Versus like, no, my love for my wife is so over the top, and I can't wait to love some kids. And it's just like born to be loved.
Bring them into that, share that type
and a human being that realized, oh, I was just born for the whole reason. The whole reason I was born was to be loved.
Love,
Because before I was born, my papa had this idea: I want to love someone else.
Yeah.
So he said, I want to make some humans love them.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. That's good. Physics. There it is.
There it is.
So next module is
biology.
Yeah.
Oof.
Raise your hand if you hated biology in school.
I didn't really start school until I got here, so I love biology.
That's fair.
Nice.
Yeah.
Soundbite that. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for another episode. Cass, thanks for having me. Cassadie.
Oh,
I
don't mind Cass.
Yeah, you like Cass.
Cass is good.
Oh,
not Cassie.
It's not Cassie.
Cass, yeah.
Anything but Cass.
Cassadie, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
And sharing your wisdom.
Yeah.
Again.
Thanks for having me.
Cassadie, thank you very much.
That's
Cassadie.
a good one. No, everybody.
Have you ever heard that one?
Yeah,
okay.
like 5 people
She's
started
from
calling
Texas.
me that.
Of course, people have said that to her.
It's good. I don't mind it. I don't mind it.
That's cringe. Okay, well, we love you guys a ton. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you later.